Alright, welcome to this video. Today we're going to go ahead and go over how to make a t-shirt design using Illustrator for screen printing. Now, a brief talk about screen printing. It's different than direct-to-garment. It's different than any sort of digitally printed artworks. It's a process that is rather unique when it comes to garment making. Well, really any sort of image making. Whereas most things, you're basically doing a direct mirror transfer or a direct image production straight to a paper or a substrate surface, whichever way you want to think about it. This one deals with solid colors of ink because you're taking ink and you're passing it through an open mesh screen that is partially blocked out. So anything that is not blocked out, the ink will go through and then go to your substrate, which could be a t-shirt or a piece or your cardstock or whatever you want to go ahead and have it on, metal signs, etc., etc., etc. That being said, every design you do with screen printing needs to be counting colors. You can do halftone designs, but they tend to get kind of crazy very fast, and sometimes you get you get things washed out. Today we're going to go over a simple 3-color 80s style t-shirt design for screen printing. Now, with everything else we ever do, we always want to start off our document in pretty much the same manner. With Illustrator, whether you're using the new CC format where it has the big templates or what have you, we want to set up a custom document. Now, I like to use a standard paper size of 11 by 17, which is tabloid. I want to make sure my document size is always CMYK. This will help later on if you ever want to separate things out on your own side if you want to start doing screen printing. But it also helps out color-wise, so you don't get color shifts when you transfer something over for, say, if you do end up having to do something direct to garment or etc., etc., etc. Now, the design itself. This is going to be a pretty simple design, and it can be however which way you want to do it. We're going to create, using my pen tool here, we're going to create a geometric shape. Now this is going to have some accent cutouts, and then of course there's going to be something like a landmark sort of setup. For this one, I'm going to use palm trees because that's usually the retro type of thing you normally see with this one. You can also do it with local landmarks. You can do it with all your stuff. You can do it with circular designs rather easily. Of course, you got the standardized trapezoid shape, still doing all of that stuff. And no matter which way you go, it's a very simple layout. And then on top of this, is your text. Now the background here, the triangle, is going to consist of 2 colors, with the text being a simple 3rd color. Now for my document, I'm going to create mine on a dark colored shirt because it's the 80s, and why not? It's always going to be a black shirt, a white shirt, or a cream shirt. So for this, I'm going to create a new layer like I just did right here. I'm going to bring it below my current layer that I already had. I'm going to fill in this with a black square over my artboard. And then I'm going to lock this guy down. Clicking on layer 1 so I can now fully draw with this. We now need to go create a shape. And for this, we're going to use the Polygonal Lasso tool, which is underneath the rectangular tool. Just hold it down and it'll pop up this tool here. Now, just a word on some of the actions I might be using. If you see me click something and hold down Alt, it does it by the center. If I click and hold down on with like the square, sometimes it does it by the corner, Alt makes it go by the center. And Shift makes it proportional, so Alt and Shift is proportional. Now with this, I need to be able to see it. So we're going to go to Polygonal Lasso tool. No fill on the inside, just an outline. And just because it lets me know where the center of the page is, I'm going to click down once. Then this brings up the Polygon Tool setup. It lets me do the radius and the amount of sides. Now, being as this is going to be a triangle for me, I'm going to choose 3 sides, and this makes a perfect triangle. Now this is upside down for what I want it to be. Hold down your Shift and rotate around, and you got your upside down triangle. Now for the next stage, we need to make cutouts on this. So using your rectangle tool, make some small-ish things, or rectangles, using Alt with a click and a drag to bring it across to the side there. Now this isn't equally spaced and it's not centered to the artwork. As you tell down here, there's the center of it, it's not centered. So what we need to do is we need to go to the alignments area, which at the moment I do not have up. So go to Window, Align. This brings up your whole Align tool. Now, if you notice this little arrow here, just a little bit of a refresher. If you notice this arrow, this brings up how much information they have available for your stuff. You can go with a more simple design, such as with like the strokes, or you can go with a more complex one. For anything that involves alignment, I always say bring it out to your full expansion, because you have 2 different types of ways that you can select things and deal with all of your alignment and distributions. Align to selection and align to artboard. Align to key object is good when you have to do like singular spacing, but align to selection is the one we need to use at the moment. When we select these 5 shapes, I need to have this align to selection, so when I just equally distribute this by spacing, it will place it equal. For this, I'm going to press Control G to group it together. Go back to Align to Artboard. And from here, we're going to center it in on the triangle. And in fact, I'll even do the triangle just to make sure, and even make sure it's up and down, vertical, aligned to the center of the page. Now we need to make this shape cut out. This is actually in the Pathfinder selection. So that's either up in Windows, Pathfinder, and it'll bring it up here, or it'll be right next to Align and Transform, because that's usually the place where it goes. So we're going to use on this one, minus front. Now the way that this works is, as just a refresher again, we have a bottom shape, which is in this case the triangle, and then we have the 5 squares on top. And then when you press front minus, it basically cuts that shape out like a cookie cutter, leaving behind your triangle shape. Now we're about 1/3 of the way done. So if you notice, this is pretty fast. I've taken a lot of time to explain this, but this is the simple concept of it. I've rotated it from over here from a stroke to a solid fill, just so we can see this a little bit better. Now I want to create the landmark inside of this, and you'll see how fast this image is. Now for me, I'm going to choose this piece of stock art that was from Unsplash. Just a quick little hooty-hoo. Unsplash and a bunch of other ones. There's a bunch of free stock art sites out there. They're great for resources when you need to build some stuff up. And it's all mostly commercially usable. Great for when you're making t-shirt designs, etc., etc. Now, I chose this one by Mike Fox, I believe, and but this had a good layout. It was looking upwards. It had a good layout for a negative space in the middle, and I could have some fun with this. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not usable for what I need to do. So I need to do some simple modifications. While everything else is done in Illustrator, this is the one stage that I got to do in Photoshop because it's a photo. So for this, once I load the image in, I want to go to Image, Adjustment, Levels. And what I need to do is I need to bring most of this dark up. And you notice that even the sky darkens. But I need to bring that back just a hair. What I've just done is I've pushed a lot of the color into one darkened area with bringing the highlights up. And now the sky was the brightest part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Select, Color Range. And then I'm going to select some of this sky here. And if you notice, it pulls up mostly the whole sky with a fuzziness of 40. And this is fantastic. Because I'm going to hit Delete. And if you have it set up for this, it should show you the contents of what you wanted to delete the background to. Another way of doing it is making sure that your background is going to be set to a white right here on the back. So when you hit Delete, it will try to make the background color the color used for the delete. So now I have no color information on this at all. Control D to deselect, Image, Adjustment, Desaturate. No more color in the image. Because when we go back to Levels, we can now bring all the darkness straight up. And we've just created a pretty decent silhouette. Now this next stage is where we get to copy it, Control A, Control C, and bring it back into Illustrator. This is pretty big. Make sure you always have your constrained proportions on whenever you do resizing things. And I'm just going to make that 10 inches. If yours shows only like a word transform there, click on transform and it'll bring up this whole menu. But here I have this image. It's pretty good. It's pretty large. And what I want to do is image trace this. I'm not going to try to fiddle with any of the levels because I've already done all the work in Photoshop to make sure it's close enough to what I need it to be. It doesn't need to be fancy on this. Now, hit expand and that whole live trace shape becomes all vectors. Now this right now looks like it's all black and white. But when you do a live trace, it's a simple silhouette. The white is not fully white, and the black is not a true full black. They do this so that way it's easy for you to remove backgrounds, so to speak. Because otherwise, when you click on the background here and you hit go to select same fill color, anything that would be a normal white would be selected as well. But that's not the case. Now for giggles on this one, we're going to make this pink just so we can see it. And then I'm going to size this down just a hair. Alright, so we have a decent layout where I think this will want to go. Now, the next stage, I need to be able to make both of these objects as two singular objects, being multiple vector shapes. Now, normally, Control C, Control V. Normally, when you have two objects like this, where you have one shape that has multiple objects and one shape has multiple objects, when you go to your Pathfinder tool and you choose something like intersect, you'll notice that it does either will come up with this, or one shape will have just be cut out. That's because these are not true groupings of items. In order to make it so that way this is one solid object, even though there's multiple items, you need to press Control 8, which brings it together and combines it into one object. Same thing with the background here, Control 8. So anytime you do this process, whether it's halftone, whether it's big old palm trees, whatever you want to do, this is the next stage. So when you press these two together, select these two shapes, and then you press So when you select these two shapes and then you go to similar or intersect, it creates a cutout in just that area. Now for this, we're going to choose, let's just go with orange and yellow. I like that because that's a darker sky, brighter trees, because it gives that little shape negative. And then we're just going to group these guys together because that works well. Now the text that's on top of there, I'm just going to choose the words summer fun. And the script works well for this. So for this one, I'm going to use font check because it's something I used on a previous one, and this one's sort of fun. Bring the size up a hair. And on this, we're going to choose a bright lime color. Again, with summer, we center. Now I'm going to make a duplicate. Pressing Alt, drag it across the side there, because that way I can edit it if I need to. Now for this, we're going to go to Edit, or Object, Expand once we find what we need, what we want our design to look like. And so to make this really stand out from this design, we're going to go press Control C, and we're going to press Shift Control V to paste it in place. Now that makes a complete duplicate on the top. Now when I go to do this next stroke thing, I don't have to convert it over, but it's nice if I do. Edit Object Expand makes it a regular item, press OK, and then you can weld it all together to create one solid stroke thing. From here, I can do a couple fun things. I can either do a drop shadow real fast, hold down the Shift and Alt, or Shift and Alt, and then pop that guy down. Or bring this guy roughly back. Rotate this image here, do that. It gives it a little bit of like a shaky line look, and all I did was just basically rotate this stuff. Now one other thing I can always do is I can also shear this. I could twist this just easily enough just by bringing this around like that, but that's kind of hanky. On the other side, if I go to the scale tool and I hold it down, there's a shear tool, at which point instead of twisting it, it brings it to an alternate size right here. Now for this, I'm not feeling those little outlines. But I am digging the little fake drop shadow right there. Sort of makes it pop off there. And the design is basically done. This is a 3-color design. This is yellow, orange, and green. Shift Control G to ungroup the one simple grouping I have right here. From here, you can proof out your design to be anything you really want it to do. You want to have it as there we go. So you want to have it with a fun little color that you can modify all your stuff out. This is a great design. This took me longer to explain than it really did to make this. And like I said, you're only limited to your creativity with the shapes you can do, the type of cutout you can find, and the type of text you want to use. If you need to make this so that way it's usable for a direct garment, or you really want to make sure that it's a nice, clean, simple design and you're not going to make any changes for like the drop shadow, you can always feel free to grab your 2 shadow objects, press Control C, Control V. Now you have 2 of those. Now the same steps you repeated with making this a cutout, Control 8, Control 8. Both of those are now singular objects. You can now proceed to cut out your work. And there you go. That's your design. You can install it on everything you need to. You can take this to a screen printing shop and they'll be happy to be able to do work for you because your artwork's already done. You can take it and do your separations if you do screen printing, and this design is done. This took minimal to no effort, and it's a fantastic design. It's a throwback to the 80s, and it will get you what you want. So, if you guys have any questions, comments, or things you want to see, remember, put it in the video down below, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time.